Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. It's yet another episode with Max Adventure in SAP Cloud Platform. I hope you had a good start into the day or had a good day already, wherever you are. If you're the first time on this live stream, my name is Max. I'm a developer advocate for SAP. If you have anything you want to know, if you have any feedback, if you have any problems, or actually, if I have any problems with the audio or video, let me know in the chat. If you ever need to rant, also use the chat or to interact with all the other viewers. Yes, it's Thursday morning in Munich. As usual, I want to share some things before we are going to start with the actual topic today, because it's the first time I have a guest with me, Holger Bruchelt from Microsoft. I'd like to share a couple of things with you. Therefore, let me just adjust my scene. That's not what I wanted to show. That's also not what I wanted to show. Let's bring up another browser window. I have also some colleagues which are in these times of, I don't want to name it anymore, this crisis, which are streaming and trying to do some live streaming with SAP context. So it's Thomas Young, one of the most famous one, probably. He's doing ABAP freak shows these days all around ABAP. I'll also post it into the chat. Good morning, DJ. Who else do we have? We have for sure. As he's already on the stream. Ooh, already was there. What a nice photo he has. Some live stream formats. One is hands-on SAP Dev, all around things in the SAP Cloud Platform and Cloud Foundry. So this time it's OAuth 2.0, which we also will have today. Plus a super cool format if you're stuck at home with kids, it's Code at Home, with DJ taking you through a couple of exercises or puzzles made for kids. Super awesome. Highly recommend. And another one, which is the SAP Community Report Live by Craig Schmedel and our team or department, taking you through a couple of topics. The last one was, for example, also coding for kids with DJ, getting started with steampunk ABAP in the cloud. Servus Gregor. Nice to see you on the stream. And a super cool format by Timo Elliott, which is, give me a second, hold on. Most likely his video is already on. Well, he's one of the keynote speakers of SAP and did a presentation about how to present online in these times. Yeah, it's this one. Super cool, super useful. I took over some of his tricks, how to present online. Let me just put that in the chat as well. And what I actually wanted to share is the SAP Online Crack. 24 hours of presentation, demos, showcases, and a lot of other things where they're still looking for speakers and supporters. Super cool format. Thanks for the guys. Anna, Ronnie, a lot of other folks are helping to make this happen. Alrighty. So let's just start into the actual topic of today, because I have somebody in my green room sitting and waiting to come on. It's Holger Bruchelt, former SAP employee and one of my daily contacts in my daily job about things with Microsoft. So let's just bring him on and let's see if everything works fine. So, Holger, good morning.
Good morning, Max. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. How about you?
I'm fine. sitting here in my home office.
So, first of all, as all of them can probably see it, what t-shirts are you wearing today? Because we had some discussions about what things we are wearing today. It's my developer advocate hoodie. What do you have?
I have a beautiful SAP and Microsoft T-shirt with me. I hope you can see it. So obviously fully in line with bridging the gaps, bringing the worlds together. Yeah, I have the SAP and Microsoft. Wait, I think it's hard to see, but hopefully that's better. So yeah, SAP and Microsoft. That's my world.
Just a second. We seem to be, or seem to have some problems with my camera. Most likely, change webcam. Let me know if it's better now. Cool. So how do we start? I think we need to set the ground for today's topic, SAP plus Microsoft, before we dive into coding and apps and showcases, etc. Um, there was an announcement last year. Let me just bring that up. With Microsoft and breaks in SAP. I think that's, well, we started way earlier, but that brought a lot of more attention to this whole topic. Do you want to? We will limit it to a couple of sentences. Do you want to say a couple of words about Embrace and what we're going to do today?
Yeah, and I think you said it right. I mean, even before Embrace, I think we had a lot of interactions, especially the two of us. I think we worked on a lot of joint projects and some really cool integration demos and so on. But I think what happened end of last year was that SAP had this Embrace initiative. There's a lot of attention around this topic. What are we going to do together? What are the things that will result out of this? And what I always really loved is exactly these very tangible things that we have done. So not only talking about, well, now SAP and Microsoft are working together and this is all great, which is great, but I think the things that we have done even before, really looking at how can we not only run an SAP system on Azure, but how can we leverage features of the SAP Cloud Platform and bring functionalities of SAP Cloud Platform together with services on the Azure side, and the other way around, obviously. And what I very much loved, and I think this has been around for now quite some time, is this very simple UI integration that we come up. And actually, for me, that's really interesting, because when I was still at SAP, like 10 years ago, we had this duet joint product, which I really liked. I mean, from a concept point of view, the question was always from customers, well, can I get SAP data into a Microsoft UI? Can I get my SAP workflows in Outlook? Can I get my demand planning in Excel and stuff like that? And what changed a few years ago, I would say, is that customers then also ask, well, can I get Microsoft data into a Fiori user interface? So can I
Okay.
get SharePoint data, a SharePoint catalog, or a SharePoint document library, or something like that? Can I get this information into my Fiori user interface? So you have the Fiori Launchpad, you have Fiori applications, and now can I also embed Microsoft information in these SAP screens, to put it like this? And I think
Okay.
that was something that was really exciting for me, to really see that we now have both sides. We have customers asking to integrate into a Microsoft screen, but we also have customers that love the Fiori user interface, that love the experience that they get from UI5 from SAP Fiori, and now they want to embed um, Microsoft data in
Mm.
these Fiori UIs.
Do you want to elaborate the fact or the difference between a duet and how we do it today?
Oh, I could talk about this for hours. because I think so. So interestingly enough, so we had a few months ago we had an internal event at Microsoft, similar like what SAP has the DCOM, where we onboard, where we educate our internal fields. And I had a session about SAP and Microsoft integration. And I actually started my session by talking about Duet, and I pulled out some of the old slides that were like 10 years old or something like that. Um, because I think the important thing is that the concepts, the ideas of Duet, to just bring services from both worlds together, data from the SAP world, data from the Microsoft world together on one screen is still extremely relevant. Because I, as a business user, I honestly couldn't care less where the data is coming from. For me, I need to fulfill a certain task. I need to work on a certain business scenario. And the only interesting thing for me is that I need to have access to the data. And with Duet, we tried this for the first time, to really bring SAP data into the Microsoft world. But unfortunately, I would say technology wasn't there where it is today. And so, for example, one of the key things of Duet was to figure out how can we do single sign-on. Something like SAML wasn't there yet. OData wasn't there yet. So a lot of technology components were simply not there yet at this time. I also have to admit that there was a lot of political stuff involved. Microsoft wanted to have some components in this. SAP wanted to have some components in the architecture. So, looking at the overall Duet architecture, it was fairly complicated to set up. I mean, it was not impossible. I even had a TechEd session, a 4-hour TechEd session, where we really from zero started and set up Duet, and it worked. So. And we still, I think we still even have, even Microsoft is still running Duet for some scenarios. So it is working, but setting it up took some time. And I think
Okay.
that's where we are now in a completely new area, where we have SAP Cloud Platform, where we have a lot of services that you can leverage. We have Office 365, so it's much easier to integrate these tools. We have these open standards. We have SAML. We have OData. So because of that, it's really much easier to realize what we wanted to realize with Duet like 10 years ago.
Okay. Actually, it was a leading question because I think back in the days it was all add-ins or plugins based, but was way before my time, to be honest. But how does it look like today? And I mean, that's something what you could show us probably. Am I
Yes,
wrong?
I would be happy to show you. And I would love to show you this Fiori integration, and that we jointly built. And the important thing is everything is running here in a browser.
Mm. So your screen is already live, so people can see your screen. Mm. Just a second, Holger. We have audio problems. Me or Holger. Um, nope, obviously not. What's going wrong here? Da, da, da. So, updated it. So, well, yeah, I think we are better now. Well, I'll check the chat, but just go on. I think that's a Fiori app running on an SAP Cloud Platform and displaying data from the ES5 system, I think was the point. Hmm. Just a second, Holger. Uh, Somehow people can't hear you. I have no idea why that happens. Yeah, I can hear you pretty fine. Well, wait, what we're gonna do is I'll bring you into this screen once again. Um, Sorry for all the confusion. Where is Holger Bruchelt? Come on. So your microphone should be okay again, actually. I've, we'll double check it once again. I'll try. There might be a slight delay of 20 seconds to the audience out there. Um,
Yeah, so maybe I'll try to quickly recap then.
yep.
We have,
So we keep talking that people can check if we're still on. So Holger should be on. Give us a sign if he's on
I hope you can hear me now better.
or at all.
Or at all. Oh, okay, I wasn't audible at all. Okay, that's
Yep.
not good. I mean, in the worst case, Max, I mean, you know this scenario
Yeah.
as well as I do. So, in I mean, you can also take over if you want.
Nope. It's working fine now.
Okay, cool. So again, we have this Fiori application. We have data from the SAP system, but now what we've done, we've also linked our Azure Active Directory user, so basically a Microsoft user, to this Fiori screen, so that if I select one of these purchase orders here, for example, then the interesting thing is here we've enhanced it or enriched this application so that I can, for example, also click on one of these suppliers. And let me quickly do this. So if I click on this supplier Pico bit, then what we're doing, we're using the Microsoft Graph, and we can take a look at the graph in a second, but we're using the Microsoft Graph to query emails for this specific user here. So for this user that is logged on also with this SAP Fiori screen. And as you could see, there are no emails. So I guess that was this blink, this notification that Max just sent me an email. If I click now on the supplier name, then perfect. We have this email coming from Max that he just sent like 22 seconds ago. So
Do you
just
want to bump up your font size?
sure.
Yeah. Perfect.
So this first of all hopefully really shows you that that is a live connection. So you saw in the first click that there was no data. Now in the second click we actually have the data coming from Max. The although this is a really simple integration, I think it's pretty important to highlight that now just put yourself in the shoes of a business user. The business user is working here, looking at some purchase orders on the SAP side, and now he needs some additional information. Was I in contact with the supplier? Do I know the supplier? And he could just click on this link. He doesn't need to open up Outlook. He doesn't need to leave this user interface. And now he gets a list of all the emails that are really related or somehow mentioning this supplier name. Of course, what I could do is I can click on here, and now we leave the Fiori screen and we open up Outlook, and we really take a look at this specific email if this is something that I want. Maybe I want to send a reply to the specific email. But the important thing is really that we can now provide the user one consistent user interface. There's no jumping around. There's no switching user IDs, copy and pasting supplier names or something like that. It's really all embedded in this Fiori screen. And I think for me that was really something that opened up a lot of discussions with customers, where we really had a lot of new ideas with customers, where they said, well, can I also do this with my SharePoint documents? Can I also add here information from Azure Active Directory directly? Can I what other data can I get in here? And this is really something where I think we have a beautiful first step into new scenarios that we can show with customers.
Okay. Thanks, Holger, for the demo. Is there like any cost involved? I mean, that's a leading question as well. But
so, I mean, if you want to give it a try, there are no costs involved. The SAP Cloud Platform trial is free of charge. You can get Office 365, Office 365. There's and Azure Active Directory. There's a free trial available, so you can do this really without needing to pay anything. I hope you have shared in the meantime your tutorial, Max, that you had created, because
not yet, but I think we're gonna have a look at it in a second if I'm allowed to take over.
Yeah, sure, anytime.
All right, so we take another try with changing the scene and bringing you back. We do all of that once again before we switch the scene. Change webcam to Holger's webcam. Perfect. And why don't we have your audio? I'll give all of that a second. I mean, we prepared pretty fine in the beginning, but that's all live. Sent to live. Perfect. So I think you should see my screen now. Let me know in the comment section once again, or in the chat, if everything works fine. What I wanted to do is to take over at that step and go a little deeper in what we are doing here, because I'm probably known for showing some code. I don't want to blame you for showing the showcase. Well, all we did in this example, and I'll bring it up, is the tutorial, in fact. So it's SAP Cloud Platform, connect Microsoft Graph. There should be a tutorial, hopefully. Yes, there's a tutorial. And as we can see, that's all happening on the front end level. So you just embed some Microsoft authentication library, AMSL, in UI5 directly in the front end, and do all of that stuff in the front end. Talk to the Azure Active Directory for getting tokens, and requesting, where do we have it, at session model, authenticate with Microsoft Graph, and get, for example, where do we have the mail section, search emails via the AMSL library. Essentially, where do we have it? On press link, call a Graph API, and ask for results which match the text on the attribute we are clicking on. And your example was, for example, the supplier name. So it's looking for the supplier name. Well, in reality, that's all fine. Well, that's super cool. But I had problems, for example, because I'm not a UI developer and I'm not really a JavaScript developer at all. So I was looking for a way how to do that, for example, in a Java way. And I wouldn't promise too much if I did that already. Um, I'm not sure if you can see my screen, Holly, by the way, in the green room.
Yeah, I can see it
Cause,
there. Yeah.
and I'll check with YouTube if everything's fine. Yes, perfect. All right. So I have an example CAP application, Cloud Application Programming Model, the most current version of SAP's approach how to develop SAP extensions in the cloud, which is based on Spring Boot. So it's a simple, if I, for example, type maybe Spring Boot, run, I have a Spring Boot application running locally with some SAP libraries, generating out of CDS files or data services, etc. And I thought, well, it could be a cool idea if we're building extension in the cloud with CAP, which is the way to go, and also extend like we did it in the front end on a backend perspective with Microsoft or data coming from Office 365 with Microsoft Graph. So if we open up, for example, a local host, 8080, I have a classic CAP application running and getting some OData services, getting some metadata. And I, for example, created a dummy entity with a mail with two properties, its ID and title. And the ID is just a dummy entity that we have an ID, but we will bring in a title or a subject of a mail and could, for example, enhance it with data, or the other way around, enhance SAP data with data from Microsoft. So, for example, taking the Cloud SDK, querying an SAP system, and then enriching it with data from the Microsoft Graph. So what I did, for example, if we just execute that one, we should hopefully get, nope, because I need to log on once again. We'll do that in the incognito one. What am I doing? Oh, that's the wrong one. That's the wrong application. That was actually the example I wanted to show later on. Give it a couple of seconds to start up. In the meantime, whenever this OData service, for example, is triggered, I say on my entity mail is read. It's calling the Microsoft Graph. And for example, because I'm logged in then, the API and queries the messages. Well, which is in fact the mails. And just converts it to the format I'm expecting it with an ID. And the title of the ID is just a random counter here. And I hope my application is running now. Perfect. So I'm asked to log in, as in Max Streifeneder, with a mail address. I feel nice that he joined font size plus plus. Ah, nice. Thank you, dummy. I always forget that one. So give it a few seconds until the code arrives at my phone. Oh, here's my code. 639.
It's also a nice authenticator app, right? So that you don't have to wait.
Yeah. But I think that doesn't work in all cases. I have it for most of my accounts. I have a lot of accounts, to be honest. But for this account, it somehow doesn't work. Or I haven't configured it the right way. It could also be. So Max Schleifman is logged into Azure Active Directory, in which my application, the Spring Boot application, is registered. Multi-factor authentication is such a UX killer. Yes, but unfortunately it's necessary. So if I click on the link, I'll query my OData service, and this will internally go to Microsoft Graph and reads all my mails, for example, and I could enrich it with whatever SAP data, for example. So that's the way of pretty simple. I have Auto as client service, which is auto-wired, and Spring Boot security takes over all the authentication with Azure Active Directory without a lot of effort. It's just configuring some endpoints, my client ID and my client secret. I hope you don't take it. And I tried a couple of things with configuring different endpoints, but that's essentially all to register an application in Azure Active Directory and call it from Java. So that's one cool thing, which is still calling data from Microsoft Graph, but there are different things. And what I wanted to share is, for example, Microsoft Graph subscriptions. That's all a pulling mechanism, which means I have to ask for updates. Is there anything new? Is there anything in my mailbox? Which is, for a lot of cases, I think enough and sufficient. But there's also, in times of 2020, I would say, a mechanism with regards to, let's call it push notifications, which everybody knows from WhatsApp. If there's something new, please notify me. That means, for example, if there's a new message, please call my application and give me an information, hey, there's something new and what's new. And there's also an implementation of that. Holger, dive in if you have anything to add. I'm not sure if you're still there.
I'm still there. I'm listening.
All right. For example, I did the same for, just to explain what those two columns are. We have delegated permissions and we have application permissions. And in the beginning, I was super confused by what's the difference between those two things. The delegated one is just the example we've shown you, that a user logs in with his personal account, gets redirected to Azure Active Directory, and Azure Active Directory sends a response or redirects again to my application. The application one over here is without an actual user logged in, and is, with regards to OAuth 2, a client credential flow. So I did exactly the same thing in a similar application, which I've just shown you accidentally before, which is this one over here. It's again a CAP application, but I did it, just in a plain Spring Boot context. I have an endpoint called user sub, which creates me a subscription. I want to get updated or update news for the resource user. So whenever somebody changes something on a user in my Azure Active Directory, I want to get notified in my Spring Boot application on this endpoint, and can, for example, react on that with whatever business functionality you have. In the user context, it's probably a little bit different, but imagine if we have a look at all these things over here. If a drive item, for example, is created in a certain folder, you can react on that, read the drive item, pass it, write it to a database, whatever you want to do. So let's just try also this application. And I think, I'm not sure if this the bridge to our next topic at 2 or 3 minutes with when something is uploaded to OneDrive. Is that something we want to do today, or is that something we want to do later on, Holger?
Before we go there, maybe we can also quickly take a look at the Microsoft Graph then in general.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we called it a few times from an application, but maybe we can also quickly take a look at the functions and the features, how it works with the Microsoft Graph.
Okay, let me just finish that to show how to prove that it works. So I've again A Spring Boot application running locally on 8080, and I'm subscribing through the internet or saying Microsoft Graph, please notify me if something changes on this URL. But that's my application is not available in the internet yet. So we use, and sorry Philip that you're on and you probably know ngrok. It's a quick and dirty way to make my application available in the internet. It takes my localhost 8080 port in this case and makes it available on this URL. Let's just check if everything's fine. And the difference here is that I only provide my client ID, my secret, and my tenant ID. So nobody is actually logged in. It's just a technical user which is logged in. All right, so if we access my user sub route, localhost 8080 user sub. That's not working. What did I do wrong? It's all live. Well, actually, we should now see something coming in on this URL, which is the route we addressed over here. And Microsoft Graph just validates if this is a route which is aware of that this should receive notifications, and I only return the validation token. But usually we should see a request here coming from Microsoft Graph and saying, well, yeah, I want to have the notify client over here. What the hell am I doing wrong? We do that once again. So is everybody on the stream still live? So my arrows are gone. Actually, I wasn't planning to spend that much time, but we'd take it for 2 more minutes. If it doesn't work, I'll publish a blog post about it.
So let's hope it doesn't work. Then we get a blog post.
I'm so bad at writing blog posts, to be honest. So my application is running. That's fine. Perfect. And as we can see, Microsoft Graph is calling my URL now and want to validate if everything's fine. Perfect. And if we have a look, we can also use the SDK to ask, do I have any subscriptions at all? Let's do that for a second. And have a look at subs. There's a new subscription for users. Okay, it's rushing through, but I just want to prove that this is actually working and this is kind of nice and convenient. So we want to receive notifications if we change a user, and we do that in a nutshell. So this is the Active Directory where my application is registered, just to prove it for you. Where are we? My subscription Java test, that's the application. And we do a quick change on my user. Where is my user? Max Schlafmüller, and it's Julian Schlafmüller. It changes. And usually we should now get another request to that URL with the update with my user. That could take some seconds every now and then, but usually that should work fine. Shouldn't take that long usually. Come on. I give it 50 more seconds, then we just skip it.
Should we, while we wait, should we switch over to the Microsoft Graph and then maybe?
Yeah, why not? So, do you want to do that?
Sure.
I take
Talk
the risk and change the scene to your desktop and send it to life.
So let's. Hopefully, you can still hear me. So you've seen that we used the graph now in Max's CAP applications, in the Fiori application. And I mean, maybe you're aware of the SAP graph that was recently released, that is in beta right now, I think. But there's also the Microsoft graph that we are using. So if you go to developer.microsoft.com, or actually I think it's also graph.microsoft.com, then what I really like, I mean, there's a lot of documentation how to get started for the different languages, how to reference these APIs. But to easily get started, there's a Graph Explorer. And this Graph Explorer allows you to perform these calls, the REST calls that Max also did in his application, that we did in the Fiori application. And basically, this is a very easy way to get started. So for example, here, if I call graph.microsoft.com/me, basically, if I run this, then there's even a demo user. So there's Megan Bowen, and I get some information back from this demo user. What I could also do is I could actually sign in with a real user. So in my case, I'm just signing in with this Alan DeYoung user, one of my test users. And now I could also use the graph and query really against this specific user. So if I call again this /me, then I get now the information for this Alan DeYoung. And the interesting thing is that you can very easily now test out the services. So without writing one single line of code, you can just, what would be the URL to get the photo of this specific user? Or we talk a lot about email, so I could, for example, take a look at all my calendar entries. Or if I go down here to show more examples, then you can see there's, for example, for Outlook Mail, there's for Excel, for OneDrive, if I would like to look at some of the documents, for Teams. So you can see that there's a lot of sample scenarios already available. And if I just take a look at this mail, then, for example, here I have, what do we have? Get mail headers, for example. So I could easily retrieve the list of mail headers. And I get up here the corresponding URL. And with this, obviously, I could very easily take this URL, put it in my application, and then use this to embed content from the graph in my SAP applications. That's for me a really, really powerful way just to get started, just to play around, see what's there, experience what information is there. As you can see, not everything is currently available via the Microsoft Graph, and there are also a lot of APIs that are still in beta. But still, if you just want to get started, if you want to get some insights how you can access the data, then I think this Graph Explorer is really, really powerful.
Cool. Thanks a lot.
Is it working on your side now? Did you get a...
Let me check. Nope, unfortunately not. I mean, I've tested this thing yesterday evening because I out a lot of things, but I have no idea why. But that's life with a V and a F. Life or live. Do we have anything else to share? That's just a.
Well, when you
a lot to
mentioned
share.
this whole eventing, I was just thinking, instead of writing a lot of code, and I'm certainly not a hard code developer. I think Andre Fischer, I guess some of you know Andre Fischer from SAP. I like him a lot, and he always says he's a hobby developer, and I'm much more a hobby developer. So I know my way around, but I'm certainly not a hardcore developer. So when it comes, for example, to this eventing, there is something that we call Power Automate, and maybe we can just spend 1 minute on Power Automate, because there we also have a way how we can listen very easily to these events. So there's a bunch of basically Automate is a flow engine, so to say, where you can have additional several steps, and for example. One of these steps could be that I listen to an HTTP trigger, but there are also triggers when a file is selected, or I could have scenarios where, yeah, like you said, an email is coming in, or an event is a document is selected, or whatever. So I could just, let me create here just as a dummy example. So I could really have here different steps. I could have different actions when I look at email, when an email is sent, or when, yeah. So when something happens in the Microsoft universe, also in some other areas, obviously, then I can really build on that and trigger a flow. And that can be sometimes really nice, especially if you don't want to develop, or if you can't develop something, then this is actually a beautiful way how to react to events. And obviously, you can also integrate this with SAP. I mean, that's always obviously.
That would have been the next question, yeah.
So we do have an SAP ERP connector that allows you to call BAPIs and stuff like that. But you can also call via HTTP. You can also call an OData service. So you can import a Swagger or an Open API specification, and then call an OData service on the SAP side, for example. Have a nice integration there with the SAP world, which I think will be really nice. So I didn't want to spend too much time on it. I just wanted to, since you were talking about all these trigger events, I thought, especially when you are coming from the Microsoft world, this Power Automate would be something that would certainly come to mind when you want to react to certain events.
Okay. Can you think of like a scenario where it would make sense? Like a simple
certainly.
scenario.
Certainly. We have a lot of discussions actually also with SAP right now on certain scenarios. So I would really say whenever there is an event in the Microsoft universe, so an incoming email that has information from a supplier or something like that, that is something that you could where you could use Power Automate to react to this event and then trigger something on the SAP system. Or maybe you have a OneDrive where your suppliers can upload documents. You could react to these events. There's a new document stored on your OneDrive, so now you take it. In HR, there are scenarios that someone uploads a CV. Maybe you could have a very, very simple HR application where candidates upload their CV to a OneDrive, and then you take this, maybe you parse the CV, and then you forward the information to your SuccessFactors system. So there are really a lot of these scenarios where even a business user can really quickly get started to build these integration scenarios.
Cool.
Yeah. Maybe
so
we can take a closer look at these, because this is also really a huge universe, and I think especially in this integration, when it comes to integrating these steps, these flow, these triggers to the SAP world, there are a lot of opportunities here.
Yeah. And probably it's a little spoiler. I don't want to talk too much about that, but we are doing something in parallel already to prepare stuff for that. So I think your internet connection is a
To go
little
there, yes.
bumpy. Are you still there, Holger? Okay, so we have round about 10 minutes.
Okay.
To be honest, we didn't plan too much. We want to make it as spontaneous as possible. So we have Azure Active Directory, which is, I think, not the most exciting thing, but like the basic for a lot of scenarios. Or you have something you want to show.
Well, so obviously, potentially, we could continue here. I mean, with Power Automate, and I hope that the connection is good again. I don't know.
Yep.
Okay. So
Everything's fine again.
what we see a lot also is, I mean, Power Automate is great to trigger something, but then in a lot of cases now you want to also visualize these, and for this actually we have something called Power Apps, which we see with several customers now, and I cannot name some customer names here, but we have customers that approach Microsoft and SAP here and ask, well, we would like to have a low code solution. So not like when you build a CAP application or a Fiori application where you need to have at least some knowledge on how to work with JavaScript and HTML and stuff like that. But we're really looking at a low code, no code solution. And for this, we have something called Power Apps. And Power Apps allows you to build applications by more or less dragging and dropping UI components and linking these UI components to data sources. And these data sources can be, for example, a Microsoft Flow that is then connected to the SAP system as one example. Or it can also connect to other scenarios. And that is something where we see a lot of interest right now. And we just created one example where we connect again to my favorite SAP system, the ES5 developer gateway system, where we created a very simple Power App that connects via HTTP, via OData, to the gateway system and retrieves a list of products here. So this is a very, very simple Power App. It really doesn't take long to create and develop it, but now you can just select these products from your ES5 system. You can make changes here. So if I want to change the price or whatever, maybe this is getting a little more expensive, I can do this here from this Power App. And what it does in the background, it really just calls these flows. So one of the flows is actually really here.
Just to chime in, my fear as an SAP administrator would be, how's this app then living? In which universe is this app living? Is it possible to, and I think the answer is yes, to integrate it into Fiori Launchpad, to have like one common entry point?
Absolutely, and that was a really nice segue. Actually, maybe I can quickly do some advertising because we also have a YouTube channel called SAP on Azure, where we really talk about all these integration scenarios. And one of my upcoming videos there will be how I can take these Power applications and how I can really embed them into. Actually, I'll start with the cloud platform portal services, because when I started my career at SAP, I was actually a NetWeaver portal consultant. So the portal is still very close to my heart. And now we have the cloud platform portal services, and it's so easy. It's really nice. And then you can have a native Fiori applications living next to a Power App. And for the user, there's no difference. They just want to work with the data, and it's really, really beautiful what we can do there.
Awesome. I think this is a good bridge probably to where that fits into a bigger picture. And I know you've been working on with a colleague of mine, Aniva, on the reference architectures. And I think to like understand where that fits in and how that could be combined. And I know you couldn't cover all of that in 1 hour, and that's not even possible. Do you want to show them or the reference architectures on the SAP page, which were just published? Do you have them handy?
No, I don't have them handy.
And give me a second.
Yeah. So the idea of these reference architectures, while you pull them up, it's really to guide customers that are both SAP and Microsoft customers how they can bring these different tools together. So very often there's a clear business demand to have a certain scenario established, and from a technical side, you immediately know, okay, these components on the SAP side would help, and these components on the Microsoft side would help, but there's no guidance how you would put these components together. And what we see with a lot of customers is that there's a strong SAP department, there's a strong Microsoft department, but they don't work together. They don't know to the SAP and the Microsoft administrator, architect. Um, this is a best practice by Microsoft and SAP, how these two components would work together. So how can I connect the workflow services on the SAP side with, for example, Outlook on the Microsoft side? Or how can I use sub cloud platform integration services, CPI? How can I use CPI with and Logic apps on the Microsoft side? Obviously, how can I do single sign-on? How can I use Azure Active Directory with the sub cloud platform identity and authentication services? So we've just started with 5 broadest scenarios so far that we have published on SAP.com. And now we're building more and more of this content. We're working with a lot of customers in the meantime, which is also really good. So we are also getting, these reference architectures are not just something that SAP and Microsoft thought, well, this might be nice, but we are really working with customers together, getting feedback, getting ideas also from customers, how these scenarios could work together. And yeah, hopefully you have found the links in the meantime.
Yeah,
But
we
that's
switched
something where I
scene
think we
probably.
will make some really, where we'll have some really strong content over the next month.
So I just switched the scene to my desktop. And I've brought up one. I'm not sure if you can see it. Yeah, your connection was a little delayed, but I found it. I switched to my scene, so my desktop is now visible. I'm not sure if you can see my screen.
Yeah, it's always a little complicated, but yeah, now I can see it. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. I think that's one of these reference architectures which you just mentioned is cloud platform use cases, and then certain architecture diagrams with involved services from SAP and Microsoft. And I think it's important to mention that this is not like a forced way to go down. That's a recommendation and a good way or a combined way where SAP and Microsoft got on the same page and said, yes, that's a powerful scenario where everybody could leverage from. And that's not like the only way to realize something. That's just a recommendation. I think I lost Holger in the meantime. Um, Give me a sign, Holger, if you're still alive. All right. What could we do in the meantime? I mean, it's just 11:30 would be roundabout at the exact point. Holger, are you back? See if I'm still there. I'm still there. Well, that's unfortunate, to be honest. To have lost Holger exactly in the last minute when I wanted to thank him for being on my stream. Um, what I could do to give you an idea of this Microsoft Graph implementation is put in the link once again to the whole tutorial. If you're still on the stream and you have questions, please put them either in the chat or in the comment section or write me on Twitter. I know that I've planned, actually way more than we covered actually, but that's how a live stream is actually. If you think we should do another session, let me know. Otherwise, let me go over to my big screen. And let me thank you once again for being with me. Have a good day. Have a good public holiday if it's a public holiday tomorrow for you. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay home. I know it's just oftentimes an empty phrase, but that's, I think, how we get through this together. All right. Thanks for being with me. Have a good day. Bye. And thanks, Holger.